This is an observational record of how a household remains steady by first becoming full, and then changing nothing except what has been used. The quiet order of a full house. Domestic continuity, a phenomenon of life. Written by Red Cardinal Kitchen. The eye illumination of a dynamic archive. Some systems only work after a threshold has been crossed. They cannot be improvised from emptiness, nor can they be rushed into place. Inventory is one of these systems. It does not stabilize a household while it is still being built. It stabilizes a household only after it has been allowed to become whole. What follows is not advice. It is a record of continuity, of how food, cleaning supplies, and everyday household needs settle into balance once fullness is established and attention replaces urgency. There are moments when the way a household eats changes. Not gradually, but all at once. Meals become quieter, portions shift. Certain foods are no longer needed as often, while others become staples. The kitchen adjusts to a new rhythm, even before anyone names it. In those moments, shopping aisle by aisle no longer works. The basket fills too quickly. The freezer aisle arrives too late. The checkout becomes something to brace for rather than complete. This record begins after that tension has been recognized, and after a different approach has been chosen. Stores are not arranged around what households need. They are arranged around what interrupts intention. Items meant to be consumed quickly, sweets, baked goods, small indulgences, are placed before essential aisles, not beside them. To reach flour or sugar, attention must first pass what was not planned. To reach meat, the eye must navigate spices and bread displays set just out of sequence, close enough to be considered without being sought. These placements are not mistakes. They are designed pauses, moments where decision-making is already engaged and therefore easier to redirect. The basket grows not because something was needed, but because something was seen. A list changes this relationship. It removes the aisle from authority. When shopping follows a list rather than a path, the store no longer decides what enters the household. The list does. Attention returns to what was chosen earlier, before persuasion entered the space. The change did not begin with saving money. It began with deciding what belonged in the house, and then allowing the house to become full in the most forgiving way possible. Early filling did not rely on a single store or a single trip. It followed seasons and moments when pantry foods, spices, and staples quietly cost less, holiday periods, clearance cycles, and ordinary sales that appeared and disappeared without announcement. At first, the list moved across stores rather than settling into one. Wherever an item appeared at a reasonable price, it was added. No attempt was made to complete the pantry all at once. The house filled gradually, using opportunity rather than urgency. During this stage, attention shifted from the aisle display to the small numbers beneath it. Unit prices mattered more than placement. Size was chosen deliberately, sometimes smaller, sometimes larger, based on value rather than suggestion. The shelf tag became part of the system, not the promotion above it. Only after the kitchen, pantry, freezer, refrigerator, and household supplies reached a stable, usable fullness did the question of where to shop consistently arise. From that point forward, choice returned to the list. The store no longer decided what entered the house. The house decided what it needed. Filling did not mean excess. It meant presence, and it meant familiarity. Spices that were used regularly were allowed to exist on the shelf in full jars. Canned foods were added slowly, until there were enough to rotate through meals without urgency. Packaged and boxed foods were chosen for reliability rather than novelty. As the shelves filled, attention shifted away from brand names and toward the food itself. Store-labeled items were often part of this process. Though marked with a retailer's name, many were sealed and supplied by well-known producers. The packaging changed, the contents did not. Over time, the house learned which store brands could be trusted, not because they were cheaper, but because they proved consistent. Nothing was added all at once. The pantry grew through recognition rather than accumulation. Item by item, the shelves became familiar, and fullness arrived without excess. Dried herbs joined the pantry one at a time. An extra can was added on one shopping trip, another the next. A second bag of rice appeared. A backup box of pasta waited quietly. Some of these items came from familiar stores. Others came from Saturday markets, where dried goods, herbs, and simple staples were often offered plainly, without excess packaging or pressure. These were not stockpiles. They were foundations. The freezer filled more slowly. Meals were set aside to be paused rather than consumed immediately. Vegetables waited without urgency. Proteins were wrapped, labeled, and remembered. Nothing was rushed. Everything was placed with the expectation that it would be returned to, not forgotten. The refrigerator learned its new size. Fewer people meant faster turnover, clearer shelves, and less forgotten food. Fresh items were chosen with care and used fully. What no longer belonged was not replaced. At times, surplus and salvage stores entered this rhythm. Wholesale outlets, chef stores, markdown markets, and other secondary food sources offered opportunities to adjust without excess. These places were not used to overfill the refrigerator, but to supplement it, adding value where it made sense, skipping what did not fit the household's pace. Selection mattered more than volume. Alongside this, pet food and treats became part of the same system. They were not separate purchases or afterthoughts. They were household continuity, tracked, stored, and replaced like everything else that supported daily life. Cleaning supplies followed the same logic as food. Dish soap, scouring pads, laundry detergent, surface cleaners, and toilet and bath supplies were allowed to reach a full, usable state. Under the sink became as important as the pantry shelf. To reach that state, there was no requirement to shop at any particular kind of store. Dollar stores and similar outlets were part of the landscape, especially at the beginning. These places offered access without ceremony. They were not a reflection of lack, but of practicality. What mattered was that the item worked, that it belonged in the house, and that it could be replaced when used. Once the shelves were full, replacement followed the same rule as everything else. What was taken was returned. What remained was left untouched. The system held because dignity was never tied to where something was purchased, only to whether it served its purpose. Gas for the car, postage, medications, and gifts were not part of this system. The boundary was clear. This record concerns food and household cleaning only. Reaching fullness took time. It did not happen in a single month. It required patience and steady attention. During this period, certain foods gradually fell away, not by rule, but by consequence. Fast food, packaged snacks, candy, and prepared items proved expensive without returning anything to the shelves. Once eaten, they left no continuity behind. As these items faded, home cooking took their place. The same amount of money that disappeared quickly at a drive-thru or counter began to return as ingredients. What had once purchased a single meal now produced several. Volume increased. Meals repeated. Leftovers became possible. The kitchen started feeding itself. Once the shelves were full, the system changed completely. From that point forward, nothing new entered the house unless something had been used. Replacement replaced impulse. Continuity replaced urgency. The structure held because every purchase returned to the system it came from. Before the list settled into repetition, uncertainty often filled the space it left behind. The quiet question, "What if this runs out before the week is over?" created pressure to add more than was needed. Small extras slipped in as reassurance. The cart grew, not from use, but from fear of shortage. When the system took hold, the list stopped growing. It repeated. The same list was copied each week, not rewritten. Items were no longer guessed at or added, just in case. They were recorded only if they had actually been consumed. If eggs ran out, eggs returned. If potatoes were used, potatoes reappeared. If nothing was taken, nothing was replaced. The list no longer responded to anxiety. It responded only to fact. To prevent boredom, one small allowance remained. a new fruit, a different vegetable, something unfamiliar but modest. Often, this choice followed the seasons rather than impulse. When produce was in season, it appeared more easily and at lower cost. Summer and early fall brought variety without strain, carrying through until October in many places. Access varied by region. When standard stores did not carry these items affordably, farm stands and farm food stores became part of the landscape. These places offered produce closer to its source, often at prices that reflected timing rather than promotion. The system adapted without expanding. Novelty was permitted, but it remained contained. One change was enough. Curiosity was satisfied without disrupting the list, and the rhythm of replacement continued undisturbed. Prices were not trusted to remain stable. Each item on the list carried its own memory. If something cost $5 one week, that number became the starting point the next time it was needed. Sometimes prices dropped, sometimes they did not. The list prepared for the higher number so the household never arrived empty-handed. Over time, rows formed beside each item, marking change across weeks and years. Receipts were kept, records were stored, the list remembered even when prices refused to behave. Payment followed the same principle. Food and household purchases stayed contained. Cash was used when possible. When a card was used, it was reserved for these items alone. Credit was kept separate, belonging to other purposes and other decisions. This separation protected the system from drifting beyond its bounds. The store itself became part of the record. Memberships were quietly accepted. Rewards programs, cashback offers, and store applications joined the process without ceremony. Coupons were clipped. Small savings accumulated. $15 here, $30 there. None of it changed the list, but all of it softened the total. In this way, preparation replaced surprise. The list arrived before uncertainty did. The household did not hope prices would be fair. It planned as though they might not be. When preparing a shopping total, the highest recorded price for each item was used. This prevented surprise and removed fear at checkout. If the total came in lower, it was treated as confirmation rather than luck. The system planned for the worst and welcomed the better. When prices rose beyond reason, substitution took place without disruption. If beef climbed too high, another protein stepped in. If certain cuts became expensive, smaller portions and different pieces were chosen instead. Cutlets, trimmings, and modest portions worked well for soups, stews, and casseroles, where value returned through volume and repetition rather than presentation. The list did not insist on a specific cut or name. It responded to availability. High-priced steaks were not required for nourishment, and familiar meals did not depend on premium choices. In this way, flexibility entered without impulse, and the system continued uninterrupted. Different households require different amounts. Some families spend less, some spend more. Household size, dietary needs, and local pricing all vary. This record does not pretend otherwise. For larger households, bulk foods often become part of the method. Staples such as grains, beans, flour, rice, or other long-keeping items scale more easily when purchased in larger quantities. For smaller households, those same items may be bought in modest amounts to avoid waste. The difference is not strategy, but proportion. What remains constant is method. Replacement works regardless of scale. Whether items arrive one at a time or in larger measures, the system holds because it responds only to what has been used and returns only what belongs. Not every household operates within the same budget. Some have more financial room. Others have less. Some feed one or two people. Others feed many. Household size and available resources shape what feels possible long before any system is chosen. For this reason, the method described here does not depend on a fixed dollar amount. It depends on finding a level of spending that allows the household to remain full without strain. Once that level is known, replacement can occur calmly within it. The number may differ from one household to another, but the structure holds because it adapts to scale. Before this structure existed, spending was often assessed only after a full month had passed. By then, small additions had accumulated unnoticed, and the total arrived late, heavier than expected. The uncertainty carried tension, because correction was no longer possible. When the structure stabilized, spending shifted to a weekly rhythm. The amount became visible immediately. What was missing could be seen while inventory was taken, and only those items returned. Weekly replacement prevented quiet additions, sweets, pastries, or unnecessary extras from entering the list simply because there was room in the cart. Over time, the kitchen itself adjusted. Baking staples replaced many boxed foods. Flour, oils, and basic ingredients supported meals that were made rather than purchased. Some packaged items remained, pasta and other practical staples, but they were chosen deliberately. In this way, weekly awareness kept both cost and choice grounded, and the monthly total became a result rather than a surprise. This record does not include fast food, prepared takeout, or purchased beverages such as coffee from cafes. Those choices follow a different spending logic and are shaped by convenience rather than inventory. When food is prepared outside the household, it does not return to the shelves, and nothing is replaced. The system described here applies only to food and household items that live within the house, items that can be seen, counted, used, and returned. Once those boundaries are held, the structure remains stable. When they are crossed, the method no longer applies. The stability did not come from eating less. It came from knowing more. Before shopping, attention moved ahead of the cart. Prices were looked up online when possible. Some stores required membership before numbers could be seen, and those steps were taken quietly. When information was not available, aisles were walked without buying, prices noted by hand, stored in a phone, or written down for later comparison. This work happened before the list was finalized. One store was not assumed to be the reference. Another was checked. Differences were observed. Patterns emerged. Over time, the household learned where certain items belonged, and where they did not. Because the house knew what it held, and the list knew what had left, nothing else was required. Knowledge arrived before decision. Fear no longer waited at the aisle. The checkout no longer carried silence or tension. It simply marked the end of a process that had already been decided. The list remained close to where food and supplies were used. It did not wait for shopping day. When an item was finished, it was added. When something ran low, it was marked. Some households used simple notes. Others used columns to track counts. The method varied, but the result was the same. The next week's list formed quietly as the week unfolded. Because the list lived with the household, nothing had to be recalled later. Memory was transferred to paper or screen, and decision followed use rather than guesswork. Putting groceries away became part of the same system. New items moved to the back. Older items came forward. Cleaning supplies returned to their place beneath sinks and shelves. Nothing hid. Nothing expired unseen. In this way, the house no longer depended on recall. It learned to remember itself. Attention shifted to what had been waiting the longest. Items closest to expiration moved forward. Older foods were eaten first. What could not stand alone became something else. Vegetables softened into soups. Meats stretched through stews and casseroles. Leftovers were folded back into meals rather than set aside and forgotten. This practice did not feel like rescue. It felt like completion. Food that might have been wasted returned as nourishment, and the shelves continued to turn without strain. Weeks passed without drama. Holidays arrived and passed. Some weeks cost less because nothing had run out. Other weeks cost more because several items returned at once. The average held steady. The system absorbed variation not by resisting it, but by transforming what it already held. Savings did not wait for the end of the week. They were noticed as they appeared. Coupons were gathered ahead of time. Offers surfaced through phone applications and online grocers. Nothing was rushed. Opportunities were observed and set aside quietly, ready when replacement was needed. Because preparation happened gradually, inventory stopped feeling like work. It became background awareness. A glance at a shelf. A note added when something was finished. A quiet replacement already anticipated. Attention replaced effort. The system no longer demanded energy because it no longer relied on urgency. What was needed was already known before the week began. Recipes that suited the household were chosen and repeated. Bread was made ahead of time on days off and frozen for later use. Beans were soaked patiently, rinsed, and prepared in advance so they could be divided and stored for future meals. Rice was cooked, cooled, and frozen promptly rather than left uncertain. Meals began one day ahead. When ingredients were needed, whether for chili, salads, or something simple, they were moved from freezer to refrigerator the day before. Nothing was rushed. Supper arrived already decided. A full house revealed itself not by abundance, but by calm. There was always something to cook, always something to clean with, always enough pet food and treats waiting. The household stayed ready, not because it was stocked endlessly, but because what it held was used and prepared at the right time. Predictable without becoming boring. Foods were rotated rather than repeated. A baking potato gave way to a yam, then to squash. Long-keeping vegetables, cabbage, carrots, celery, onions, formed the base, while green and yellow vegetables took turns above them. Dairy shifted quietly. Cheese one week, yogurt another, cottage cheese or sour cream later. Nothing arrived all at once. Chicken appeared often, not out of routine, but because it adapted easily, roasted one night, folded into tacos, burritos, soups, or pasta the next. Beans stepped in when meat rested. Occasionally, patience made room for something special. A beef roast saved for, or a ham cooked once, sliced, and frozen to return across many meals. As prepared food replaced snacks and candy, appetite steadied. Portions made sense. Energy returned without effort. Weight shifted quietly, not through restriction, but through nourishment. This system did not eliminate grief, change, or memory. It simply allowed daily life to continue without added strain. Meals remained possible, cleanliness remained manageable, the house held. That was enough. Control shifted without announcement. The pocketbook no longer responded to status, display, or suggestion. Shopping stopped being a measure of appearance and became an act of care. What mattered was not how full the basket looked, but how well the house functioned afterward. Over time, the fear of shopping disappeared. The store stopped deciding. The list decided. The basket no longer grew on its own, pulled forward by placement or pressure. Each item entered with intention and left with purpose. Choice returned to the household, not as restraint, but as clarity. Spending reflected need rather than signal, and the system held because it belonged to the people living inside it. The system worked best when it was understood, not enforced. Time was taken to include the whole household. The budget was spoken of plainly. The list was visible. Everyone knew what it was for and why it mattered. This understanding prevented quiet resistance and removed the need for explanation later. Within that shared awareness, one role remained steady. The person holding the purse strings kept the boundary. Not with force, but with consistency. The list was honored even when temptation appeared. Strength here did not mean rigidity. It meant returning to what had already been decided. Nothing about this system was urgent. It moved slowly and quietly, without instruction or display. It required only a beginning from fullness, and the patience to replace rather than react. Because of that patience, the household stayed aligned, and the system continued without strain. Preparing menus became something shared rather than assigned. The household gathered to plan meals, not to negotiate, but to understand what would be used. When everyone could see the list forming, expectation settled. There was no sadness later, because nothing arrived as a surprise. When groceries came home, care followed naturally. New items were placed toward the back. Foods already waiting moved forward. Shelves were faced without ceremony, not to perfect them, but to make what existed visible. The refrigerator, pantry, and cupboard stayed honest about what they held. Once established, the system asked for nothing more than that honesty. Use what is already there. Replace what is used. Leave the rest untouched. Nothing else was required for the house to continue calmly. Control returned gently. The household no longer moved at the pace of pressure or display. The budget rested where it belonged, held without tension. Shopping became something that could be enjoyed again, not because it was exciting, but because it was no longer uncertain. In this way, a household becomes steady not by controlling the world outside it, but by caring for what it already holds. What is used is returned. What remains is respected. Nothing more is required. Some households learn this system before they ever name it, not through planning, but through necessity. Food is chosen not for what it is, but for what it can become. Rice does not remain a single meal. It returns as pudding, as breakfast, as something folded into eggs, or paired with beans when nothing else is available. Eggs do not belong to one time of day. They move through breakfasts, salads, custards, and sauces. Beans do not replace meat, they extend it. They appear in chili, in stews, in pasta sauces, carrying meals forward when meat is scarce or resting. Flour becomes more than baking. It becomes bread, simple cakes, pies from fruit that would otherwise spoil, cookies that stretch a week. Popcorn becomes a treat without waste. Canned milk waits when fresh milk cannot. Root vegetables hold their place longest, potatoes, carrots, onions, cabbage, forming the base of meals long after softer foods are gone. In these households, food is selected for endurance and transformation. Ingredients are chosen because they speak to one another. One item supports many recipes. One purchase carries several meals. Meat appears when possible and pauses when it must. Beans remain. Rice remains. Flour remains. This is how stability begins. Not with abundance, but with multiplicity. With foods that forgive timing, stretch money, and allow a household to continue feeding itself without fear. What matters is not how much is present, but how much can be made from what remains. That knowledge settles quietly. It does not announce itself. It simply holds the house steady until the next week arrives. No one sees this system working. That is its success. It does not announce itself through celebration or display, and it does not require acknowledgement to continue. There are no visible milestones, no dramatic turns, no moments that call attention to what has quietly been maintained. Meals appear when they are needed. Supplies are present when they are reached for. The absence of strain becomes the only evidence that the structure is holding. Its steadiness is measured not in praise, but in the quiet continuation of ordinary days. Fullness is not excess. It is readiness. It is the condition of having what is required before the moment demands it, and of knowing that what has been used can return without disruption. It does not overflow or crowd the shelves beyond purpose. Instead, it rests in proportion, balanced between enough and restraint. In that proportion, the household does not brace for the next week. It meets it. Some households remain calm not because prices are fair, but because their systems remember. They carry forward the knowledge of what was purchased, what was consumed, and what must return. Memory replaces urgency. Structure replaces reaction. This record is preserved as part of the archive to mark that posture, continuity maintained through attentiveness rather than abundance. It remains not as instruction, but as documentation of steadiness held over time. Inventory grows gradually. Baseline fullness is established over time. Each shopping cycle may include one additional foundational pantry item until structural completeness is reached. This growth model supports long-term stability rather than bulk restocking. Prices reflect upper range estimates for boundary planning. Costs vary by region, season, and store. The budget aligns directly with the inventory categories above. Grains and starches. Low-cost energy base with long shelf life. Rice, 5 pounds, $8. Pasta, 3 pounds, $6. Flour, 5 pounds, $5. Potatoes, 10 pounds, $9. Oats, large container, $6. Category range, $34. Fruits and vegetables. Rotational plus stabilizing. Fresh. Onions, 3 pounds, $4. Carrots, 3 pounds, $4. Apples, 5 pounds, $7. Cabbage or squash, $4. Frozen, canned, frozen vegetables, 3 bags, $12. Canned tomatoes, 3 cans, $5. Category range, $36. Dairy and alternatives. Replace as used. Milk or fortified alternative, 2 gallons, $10. Eggs, 2 dozen, $12. Cheese, 2 pounds, $12. Yogurt, large container, $6. Category range, $40. Proteins. Substitution maintains structural stability. Common Western options. Chicken, 6 pounds, $30. Ground meat, 3 pounds, $24. Canned fish, 4 cans, $10. Plant-based alternatives. Dry beans, lentils, $4 to $6. Category range, $40 to $64. Fats, cooking and baking. Olive or canola oil, $8. Butter, 2 pounds, $8. Category range, $16. Household cleaning and paper. Dish soap, $2. Laundry detergent, $5. Surface and bathroom cleaners, $6. Paper towels, $5. Category range, $18. Example weekly budget range for a family of 4. Estimated total, $180 to $210. This reflects a replacement-based week aligned to the inventory sheet. It does not represent full restocking. Substitutions. Meat, beans or lentils. Dairy, fortified plant alternatives. Fresh produce, frozen or seasonal options. These substitutions adjust cost while maintaining inventory integrity. Thank you for visiting our channel and spending time with our work. Red Cardinal Kitchen, the illumination of a dynamic archive.